As stated in the Webster Dictionary, spanking is to strike on the buttocks with an open hand. According to Parent.com, 4 out of 5 parents admitted to spanking their children. A poll was recorded from the Chicago Tribune that found that 80% of 1,200 adults said they had spanked their children. Just because the vast majority admitted to spanking, does this make it okay? The underlying question is, should spanking be a child's form of punishment? Many people say that spanking is a form of punishment, while others argue and say that spanking leads to an aggressive behavior and is considered a form of child abuse. Violence is prevalent in today's society. There are laws protecting children from parental cruelty. But where do we draw that fine line between punishment and abuse? In this speech, I will state the pros and cons to this controversial issue. I will try my best to remain unbiased, as I want you, the audience, to form your own opinions. Spanking is considered a form of positive punishment, which can be a pro in this case. Positive punishment is used to avoid an unwanted behavior. Positive punishment is not necessarily something positive, but the fact that something is given as a result of an act or behavior. By doing something negative, like sticking out your tongue for example, a child would then receive a spanking. They will then associate sticking out their tongue with the unpleasant response being a spanking. By giving a spanking, the parent is in control and able to get their point across. Spanking is an easy way to get the child's attention in knowing that the parent means business. A con to spanking is that it causes an aggressive behavior. According to Andrea Howick, co-founder of WhereParentsTalk.com, in quotations, showing your child an aggressive behavior can lead to a slew of problems, like being violent towards their peers or even lowered self-esteem due to the belittling nature of a physical punishment. End quotation. According to a sociology professor at the University of New Hampshire, spanking teaches kids that when someone is doing something you don't like and they won't stop doing it, you hit them. Spanking is usually a result of the parent's anger or frustration of not being able to control their child. According to another co-founder of WhereParentsTalk.com, all spanking will do is tell your child they did something bad. It doesn't explain why it was bad or what they should have done instead. If a child is spanked, it will help evolve and change their behavior, which is reflected as a pro. Dr. Thrumball says, children will have learned through spankings to take parental warnings more seriously and to respond appropriately to the milder method before a spanking would be given. Spankings can teach something and not be considered cruel punishment, as long as it is not done out of anger. In many cases, you see that child at the grocery store who won't put something down. So what does the parent do? They count to 5. 1, 2, 3, put that down. In most cases, the parent doesn't even reach to 5. If they do get to 5, usually something is not even done. This allows the child to push the limits knowing that they will not receive a punishment. Yet a little spank would get the child's attention and allow the parent to be in control rather than the child. On the con side of things, spanking can evolve into a form of abuse. An estimated 2/3 of child abuse starts off as a form of a disciplinary act. The discipline can start off harmless, yet escalate into something more dangerous. For example, the child may adapt and not react to the spanking, so a more serious measures may be taken. For example, using a belt versus a hand when spanking. According to the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, approximately 1 in 4 parents in a study reported that an object was used in the spanking process, such as a paddle, hairbrush, or belt. The final pro to the spanking issue is that some say that spanking is harmless. The point of spanking is not to cause harm to the child, but to resolve an unwanted behavior. Parents often use the famous line, "I was spanked and I am fine," meaning that they were spanked as a child and they are fine, so what's the big deal if they spank their own children? Experts argue and say that spanking is harmless. In a clinical child and family psychology review, the conclusion was made that spanking disobedient 2 to 6-year-olds worked just as well as the tactics of reasoning and timeouts. This only worked when the parents explained the reasoning behind the action. Spanking can be effective on a short-term basis when wanting and getting a child to change a negative behavior, according to Dr. Phil. Lastly, a con that spanking causes pain and is harmful. When parents use the line, "I was spanked and I am fine," the act of being spanked is a fact. However, the "I'm fine" part is merely the person's opinion. According to the American Psychological Association, spanking can cause an increased aggression, antisocial behavior, embarrassment, physical injury, and even mental health cases in children. Alternatives to spanking. If you feel out of control, leave the situation and calm down. Do not act out of mere impulse. Parents often act out and lose control due to stress. Parents need to be kind, yet firm, when communicating with their children. It can be frustrating when you repeatedly tell your child not to do something. Children are often striving for attention and may act out knowing that they will get spanked. Even if the attention is negative, it's still considered attention to the child. Lastly, after looking at the studies done on spanking, spanking is merely associated with negative and/or positive outcomes, rather than a cause and effect relationship. Are kids being spanked as a result of misbehaving, or do they misbehave as a result of being spanked? Thanks for watching.